Hope everybody is doing all right. I'm actually possibly going to a real dinner party at my apartment complex after doing this show and all along those lines, because it is the Christmas season, which means apartment complexes, housing communities, and everybody else is having their annual Christmas parties. As a matter of fact, I went to one this past Friday at the Cultural Arts Center that I work at. One of the board members was having a get together, so there was about 3 or 4 board members and about 3 or 4 of the staff members of the Hayti Heritage Center that all got together and enjoyed some pizza and some other desserts and snacks and things along those lines. I'm not sure what they'll be having at the apartment complex and all along those lines, but that's going from 4 to 7. So I'll probably slide down there around 6 o'clock and see what snacks and drinks they might be offering and seeing what they've got going on in that space. I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, and we've been having some schizophrenic weather. It snowed a little bit, just a trace snow. It was enough to get the kids out of school for an hour or two and all along those lines. So I know my nephews were probably enjoying that little bit of a brief reprieve. On one of our other shows, a young lady from Virginia was saying they had 3 inches of snow, and I think she said she's been out for 3 days and was hoping to get a fourth or fifth day because they are allocated a certain amount of snow days, and then after that, they're not paid once they get past that snow date amount and everything like that. But earlier today it was like around 54, 58 degrees, whereas it had been in the 30s like about a day or two ago, and all along those lines. So the weather can't make up its mind. I wish my Marquette Golden Eagles could make up their mind, because they're not doing all that well in sports. We're 5-5 and are going to have to play another tough team after getting slaughtered by Wisconsin when we go against Purdue this weekend. So we might be having a losing record, but hopefully Shaka Smart can get it together, and this a young team, because it is a very young team, can get their act together and make a run at some sort of tournament. Right now, a lot of people are speculating that they won't be the NCAA. Maybe they'll be the NIT, but hey, they still got the Big East to run through and all along those lines. So the Big East is a tough conference, but we'll see if they can't get their act together by the time conference season starts. But there are a lot of good teams in that conference, such as Georgetown, such as definitely Providence is there, Connecticut, and a number of other folks are there as well. So that's some of the things going on. And like I said, we had an open house a week ago, not yesterday, but a week from yesterday, and that was held over the Hayti Heritage Center and everything like that. So we had like a whole bunch of folks that were there learning about the history of Black Wall Street, learning about the Hayti Heritage Center, and all along those lines. So that was a fun event. I think we had maybe about 65 people that came through, and that was on a rainy day as well. So rain has definitely impacted a lot of things that are going on in our community and all along those lines. But it was still a good event and a fun event, and definitely folks were there and learned a lot about the center, learned a lot about what was going on in that space, learned a lot about the upcoming 2026 season that'll feature Taisha Coates, Bradford Marcellus, Brandy Younger, Yazara, and a number of other people as well. So that'll be, I think it's 15 acts that'll be there in the year of 2026. So they put together a whole season, and we'll see what kind of draw we get from that. And of course, we're in the middle of a sustainer campaign. So letters are going out trying to get people to definitely make their donations to that organization. And I know a lot of organizations are doing it in sustainer campaigns even as we're speaking, whether that's medical organizations, art organizations, or a number of other kinds of organizations as well. So a lot's going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that. I've got some amazing guests, and I'm interested to hear what they've got going on in their lives and everything. I'll bring on Angie, and then I'll bring on Ben, and I've also got Christopher on as well. So we're going to be learning a lot about what they've got going on in their lives. So I'll start with the ladies first and bring on Angie and everything. So how are you doing, Angie? I know that you're the author of the Leonardo trait. So if you want to tell us about the Leonardo trait and what you've got going on in your life, because a lot of things are happening even here at the Hayti Heritage Center and in the Cultural Arts Center that I work at, but also here at Pod TV, which is this particular television network. And later on, I'll be getting back to Measurement, which is a testing company that I work for as well. So I think I might be like the original Jamaican, even though I don't have any Jamaican roots, because I probably got about 5 or 8 jobs and all along those lines. So tell us about the Leonardo trait.
Thanks, Mark. So, The Leonardo Trait is a book for neurodivergent people who are profoundly creative. It's the fourth edition of this book that I've written. Been working on this book for almost 20 years. This is, like I said, the fourth edition of it. And it really is just about the idea that neurodivergent people are very creative and very intelligent, very curious. We have a lot going on, like Mark here. We have a lot of jobs, we have a lot of projects, we do a lot of things. And a lot of times we feel like there's something wrong or broken with us because we do so much. We have so many things going on. And the Leonardo trait is just about the idea that we are not broken neurotypical people. We are not broken normal people. We are exactly who and what we're supposed to be. And I'm hoping to help people who feel like they're too much to realize that they are exactly enough.
That makes a lot of sense, and definitely a lot of times people are afraid to even deal with people that are neurodivergent. I've even had some friends that have worked with me at measurement, and sometimes it's a whole matter of space, and sometimes people are afraid that neurodivergent folks don't give them enough space or they don't understand enough about neurodivergence. So if you share just a little bit about your own experience, because I do remember I had a friend that was in that same space. He knew more about baseball stats than I could ever imagine wanting to know, and everything like that. I think he also knew quite a bit about trains as well.
Oh, yes. Special interests are a big neurodivergent thing. I can tell you so much about music players and headphones and audio equipment, um, and a lot about Leonardo da Vinci as well. I have several special interests. But yeah, I was weird all my life, or different. I like to say different now. I was different all my life. People thought I was weird. I was always doing a lot. I had a lot going on. I couldn't pay attention because I also have ADHD. I did not do well in school unless it was something I was really interested in. And then I aced it. I got all A's. But if I was the slightest bit bored, I just wouldn't do it. And my teachers would think that I was lazy or that there was something going on, at home. And the fact was, it didn't work in my brain. And because I was a child, I didn't know how to make it work enough that I could do well in school. And about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with autism, and that just made everything make sense. And I realized that this book that I've been writing all these years was actually for neurodivergent people and not just creative people. And I had just never known that neurodivergence applied to me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of times people don't know it until later in life. I was diagnosed with dysgraphia when I was a young adult, probably in my, I want to say late 20s, early 30s, and I've lived with it most of my life. So I don't really do a lot of driving, get around by mass transit because the left and right and me are not necessarily friends and everything like that. But I wasn't diagnosed in college. I actually went through college and high school without knowing that I even had this ailment until much later in life and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on that. And then I'm going to bring in Ben because I know he's about the remedies and stuff like that. But a lot of times people don't even understand what they're going through until later in life because, as you just said, sometimes the teachers don't understand or they're not even paying attention to the signals and all along those lines. Like I said, I want to say it was after going through a Goodwill program that I was diagnosed with the dysgraphia, which I now know that I have and have lived with for pretty much all my life. I don't know what point I developed it, but I've definitely had it for a number of years.
A lot of people don't realize that something is up until someone else mentions it to them. I started thinking I might be autistic after my son was diagnosed autistic. And then I was in the hospital with a broken ankle, and someone mentioned a behavior of mine that something was getting on my nerves. It was repetitive. And she said, "Are you autistic?" And I said, "Maybe. I don't know. My son is. Nobody's ever mentioned it to me before." And then I got curious and I started researching it. And I got to the point where I said, I want to get diagnosed. I want to know. And it just really opened up my world to know that there is actually a name for what is going on with me. Not that it's wrong with me, just that the way I am, that there was a name for that, and that there are a lot of people out there who are also neurodivergent. And it was the first time in my life that I really felt like I had people. I had people who were like me, and we could talk to each other about the way our brains work and we could understand each other about that. And it was just life changing for me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna bring in Ben, and I got another guest as well. But as I bring in Ben, I know he's worked in the remedy field as well, and all along those lines, I'd love to hear what he's got going on with BearRemedy.net and everything like that. And maybe he's got some thoughts even around neurodivergence, because, like I said, I never know where these online dinner parties are going. So we'll start off with the neurodivergence conversation. And apparently, Angie is a big fan of Leonardo da Vinci, and maybe she's got some facts that we don't even know about Leonardo da Vinci. But just share a little bit about yourself, Ben, and what you've got going on with BearRemedy.net. And if it helps with any of us that might be having these neurological things going on in our lives as well.
Yeah, so with Bear Remedy, we have a mushroom supplement that provides people with access to some of the most potent medical grade mushrooms available in the US. And what's funny is that a lot of places in the US and even the banking system right now is challenging us or trying to filter and restrict getting people access to holistic health alternatives rather than the big pharmaceutical drugs. I know we just had some issues with our banks. They're saying, well, we think these products need to be delisted. And it's like, what? Like, but they've been helping people for centuries. They're organic, they're healthy. Like, these are natural alternatives, and you literally want to stop people getting access to them, which is absolutely crazy. I know in the in the UK, they just banned cordyceps and turkey tail mushrooms, saying that they're a novel product. And I know the FDA is actually starting to do similar things here in the US, which is kind of scary for anyone who's looking for holistic health alternatives, because they work. And we know that Big Pharma doesn't have our back with some of this stuff. So so we just give people access to mushroom gummies, mushroom supplements for people who are neurodivergent, for ADHD, focus, things like that. These can be very, very good, way better than caffeine, way better than sugar. A lot of people who have ADHD feed their energy cycles or their focus cycles usually on caffeine or sugar, cans of Coke or pop or soda, whatever it is, or that third cup, fourth cup, fifth cups of coffee. Where if you use the mushroom products, you don't actually have any of the crash or the anxieties or the symptoms that go with that. And that's why we created like our gummy line as well. So the world of holistic health can be very beneficial to help stabilize people from a cortisol level, an immune level, and things like that. So that's kind of what's new.
That makes a lot of sense. Everything like that. You're in which part of the world are you at? Is it Australia, or where are you located at?
I'm in Rogers, Arkansas, and this is where we're actually building a 29-acre mushroom farm, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow. Building a mushroom farm there in Arkansas and everything like that. I just picked up an accent. It didn't sound so quite American, but it might be Arkansas native and everything along those lines. I was trying to pick up the accent, and I don't know if you've got roots in other parts of the world as well. And I did see that you had brought your dog, because I'm a big fan of the animals coming onto the show as well. So I think that was an animal that I saw in the background.
Yeah. This is Bailey. As I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit down and have this podcast, and then he's like, well, I want to sit on your lap, and I'm going to join you for this one. So I'm like, all right, why not? Whatever. So he's my right hand man, and it's just we're hanging out in the warehouse today.
So he's actually the vice president of the organization, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he's chief quality control inspector, and he's got to sample and taste every chicken nugget that walks into the building.
Every chicken nugget he walks in, he's got to taste it before he lets you have any.
Exactly. Poison control, right?
Poison control. Want to make sure that his owner is, and I don't think that dogs or cats are actually owned by humans. I think that actually they might be owning us. I know there's that whole joke as to whether dogs are in charge or whether they are our companions. And definitely it seems like a lot of people that are cat owners will say that the cat is the boss and everything like that. But I sometimes think that the dog is the boss as well. So I don't know if you got any pets, Angie.
I have, my daughter has a dog, and we have 2 cats, and we have previously had more cats and more dogs, but old age, we adopt our pets and then we outlive them. And I'm also in Arkansas, Ben. I'm in Little Rock.
It's down the road.
just down the road. The both of y'all are in Arkansas and everything like that. So that is amazing. We got two Arkansas folks and a North Carolina person. I know Arkansas is known for its football, and it's definitely got some strong teams in that regard. So I don't know if y'all are fans of the Razorbacks. I know historically the Razorbacks used to be a very good football team. I haven't followed to see. I don't think that they're among the ones playing in the playoffs this year, but I know historically they've been very good and all along those lines. So are y'all Razorback fans?
I'm not really a football fan.
This is hog country, but yeah, like most people don't realize that you got over 500 miles of mountain bike trails here, and it's the home of Walmart and Tyson Food, JB Hunt. The outside activities in this part of the country are second to none. Like it's a billionaire's playground, and there is so much opportunity in this part of the country. That's pretty exciting.
You mentioned being home to Walmart, and you are an entrepreneur yourself and everything. How much do you use the Walmart story as a framework for even creating your own company? Because a lot of people know that Mr. Walton was a major founder and a major entrepreneur back in the day, and his family still is involved in the Walmart family and the Walmart circle. I was actually just laughing with Mom earlier today, and y'all might get a kick out of this, and then I'll bring in Chris and my other guest as well. But I was talking to her because I saw we do an investment show, and I just happened to see that Walmart was selling a saxophone. The saxophone was going for a ridiculous price. It was like two of them. I saw one that was like $23,000 or $25,000, and another that was $19,000. And when I mentioned this to Mom, my mom and everything along those lines, because I talked to her, I'm very close to my parents and my brother and my nephew. She was telling me that no rush. We're not trying to get there anytime soon, but if we are at the end of our lives and everything like that, you can even get a casket from Walmart. And I'm going like, I don't know that Walmart was in that business, but apparently they are. So Mom was letting me know that apparently you can even get your own casket from Walmart and everything, and not necessarily have to depend on the funeral home and some of the more expensive ones. Even though I'm thinking the Walmart ones, if the saxophone is in the example, might be expensive as well. So what's your take on Walmart as a corporate companion and everything like that? So I'll start with you, Ben, but I want to hear from Angie as well.
Well, there's a huge amount of opportunity. The amount of R&D and development they do here is actually quite significant. They even have drone delivery and have been having that for the last few years. So like you can actually get your lunch and your food, groceries delivered by a drone. It'll drop it off in your front yard. And like, so like this is technologies that they're going to be rolling out around the country. They've got even the Walmart gas stations. The infrastructure they provide to people is quite impressive. So yeah, I think what they're doing is and how they're having to stay competitive with this AI revolution is a whole thing that a lot of companies need to be modeling. Like I know a lot of people are approaching it with fear, but like you can't be scared of this revolution which is coming. You've got to work out how you're going to embrace it and gain a competitive advantage. And I think companies like that who are showing you options, I think is a good thing to be doing. It's just like because some of this stuff is millions or billions of dollars in investment, and you can just follow their lead without having to make the same mistakes.
Now, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure about how I feel about drones. I don't know how Angie feels delivering. I do DoorDash regularly. I'm actually probably depending on them way too much, DoorDash, and on occasion Grubhub, and I've even taken Uber, even though I've got a number of friends that drive for Uber and everything like that. But I'm wondering about the drones dropping off your groceries, because I'm wondering, is there any fear of them crashing, or have there been any incidents of them crashing? And that would be my fear about that. But I mean, humans can crash too. So I just wanted your take on that, because I do know that has been one of the concerns that people have had when it's talked about drone delivery, is whether the drones will come crashing out of the sky and not make the right deliveries either. So I just wanted your take on that and what you're hearing about it.
Yeah, well, the drone deliveries have been quite safe. The drones don't land. They actually lower a basket from like 100 feet in the air, which is kind of fascinating. And you watch it come in, and it's just like really impressive. But yeah, you know what? Like, hey, people crash, Uber crash, everyone crashes, right? So like, I'm sure it happens. Like, but it's just the evolution of the future that's coming. So, and if you listen to anything that Elon Musk is saying, right, like several tens of millions of robots are going to be deployed over the next 24 months. Even like that's crazy.
No, that is crazy. We got Christopher, and I want to hear about his flagship LMS as well and everything like that. But I did know that a friend of mine, we actually went to Checkers, a grocery chain here in this area, but they're in other places as well. And that was the first time that I recall hearing, because like I said, I eat out way too much, but the first time I recall, and this was maybe about a week ago, hearing a robot take my order. So I know that this is becoming more and more common, but hearing that robot take my order was a little bit disconcerting there for a minute and everything. But the actual human handed us the food, but it was the robot that took the order and everything like that. So Christopher, where you at? I got two Arkansas folks and I'm in North Carolina, but tell me where you're at and what's going on in your world.
Oh, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Yankee. I'm north of the Mason-Dixon line, just in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well,
And
tell us about Flagship and everything along those lines, because that's what the dinner party is. I invite various people on and we learn from each other and everything like that. So you've been hearing about neurodivergence and even a little bit about what Walmart's got going on with this drone technology and the kind of stuff that Brian's doing with his, Ben's doing with his gummies and stuff along those lines in the natural medicine space. But tell me about Flagship.
So we are a learning management system company. And for those of your listeners who may not know what a learning management system is, most of them have probably touched one at one time or another if they've gone into HR and you've sat down in front of the computer and you've had to take some workplace harassment training, or maybe out in the warehouse, you've taken some OSHA training to make sure that you're doing things safely. We are not the training, we are the platform that the training sits on. And so that's, our job is to help people deliver whatever it is that they need their remote workforce to know, or their distributed workforce to know. Our job is to help make sure that happens. And so it's not sexy. It's like white collar plumbing. Nobody wants to do it, but everybody needs one every once in a while. So
now that makes sense. And this is for everybody. How much has remote learning and remote activities impacted your businesses, all three of you, in general? Because like I said, I work a variety of jobs, and one of the jobs will be starting back on probably this coming Monday, if it's not the following Monday. But that is with remote learning and everything like that, because I work with one of the leading measurement companies in terms of school testing and everything like that. So Measurement Incorporated is one of the leading testing companies out there, along with Random House and along with a number of other companies that are in that space and everything like that. But I know that for a while we were in the physical buildings working with each other, but for the last several years, all of our work has been done remotely, including some of the work that the school kids have been doing as well. So I just wondered, how much has this remote activity impacted all three of your businesses? So I'll start with you, Christopher, but I definitely want to hear from Ben and Angie as well.
Yeah, well, for us, we're 100% remote, and we always have been. So we've been in business 8 years now, and I've never met any of our employees, and it works really well because we're able to draw on talent from around the world. We've got people from the Ukraine, Mauritius, Egypt, Pakistan, India, here in the United States, of course, I'm missing a couple, but the Philippines. So the nice part is that we are not constrained by the people that are in our local area. We can meet all of our needs from, with people from around the world. It's a great thing. I'm a huge fan of remote work.
Ben, I know that a lot of your work is in person because you have the factory, but how much are you also falling into the remote work as well?
Oh, well, most of our work is remote. So like the thousands of clients that we get every month, that's all remote. That's all from advertising online or building out our distributors online. We train our distributors all through our online platforms, train them in person. We use a hybrid approach, but in our expansion to help people build local businesses, we are rapidly leveraging all the best protocols, online, offline, snail mail, newsletters, you name it. Like everyone learns a little differently. So we're trying to optimize for people to get results. And I think in that discussion, you got to leverage every modality you can.
That makes sense. Angie, are you using a lot of remote, even in the creation of your books and things along those lines? So how much are you dealing with remote work?
Definitely. I work from home. Right now, one thing I'm doing is I'm having an audiobook created of my book, The Leonardo Freight. And I'm not even sure where my narrator is. She's somewhere not here. We work together remotely through Amazon, and she's narrating the book for me, and she'll provide the files, and I will upload them to Audible, and I'll have an audiobook available. And pretty much all of my people that I work with, editors and, obviously podcasts and that kind of thing, are remote. I couldn't do what I do without the ability to work remotely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just really quickly, and then I'll get to some other discussions as well. I know you mentioned that you know a lot about Leonardo da Vinci and everything like that. What are some of the unusual things that you found out about Leonardo? Because, like I said, I do know that some people that are neurodiverse will have unusual hobbies and unusual interests, and they'll find out things that the other people may not know and everything like that. So I'm just wondering, what are some of the things that you have discovered that caught you off guard about Leonardo da Vinci?
One thing that struck me as being extremely neurodivergent, and I'm blanking on the name of the painting, but there was a painting where he painted the back of a wig. He spent hours and hours on the back of the wig, and then he painted over the back of the wig with the front of the person. So you couldn't even see the back of the wig that he had painted, but it was perfect. He got it exactly the way he wanted it, and then he finished the painting. And that just seemed like such a neurodivergent special interest type of thing, of being really, really diligent with something that no one was ever going to see.
You know, on this show and on other shows, and this is for everybody, but I'll start with you, Angie, but I definitely want to hear from Ben and Christopher as well. I've been told by several of my friends that are entrepreneurs that you have to be a little bit different to be a successful artist and to be a successful entrepreneur and everything like that. So how much do you think it is a asset to be of a different mindset than, say, the average person in order to have success either as an author or as a entrepreneur? Because I don't know any entrepreneur that works the average hours. I'm sure, Ben, you could testify to this. You probably don't work 40-hour work weeks and things along those lines. It's probably closer to 80 and things in that space. But how much is it important for us to celebrate the differences that we have and to realize that those differences can help us become successful in whatever our endeavors are?
Yeah, it's really important to celebrate that and understand the differences in people. Like, what's funny is like we found out that a huge segment of people that were using our products were ladies going through menopause, and I'm like, this was created by an Australian guy who lives in Arkansas who doesn't really know much about menopause, but now I've had to learn a hell of a lot about menopause, way more than I ever wanted to think I wanted to learn about. So it's just like understanding these segments. We have segments of our audience which are like people who are getting off cannabis, like all these type of things. Like, and I think the importance of understanding those very important market segments and being able to really talk to them and understand what's going through them in the day in their life, from all the people who deal with ADHD that's not which is self-diagnosed, and they're kind of treating it with caffeine or drugs, or like I was talking to one guy who literally has half a bottle of NyQuil every night just to get to sleep because he has 6 Monster Energy drinks a day. And like, I'm like, and he's like, oh yeah, I've been doing that for like 15 years. I'm like, how are you even alive? Like, damn. Like, but like, so this is normal for a lot of people. Like, I say that to people and they're like, oh my God, well, it's crazy. I'm like, yeah, but how many cups of coffee do you have? Like, how many Starbucks do you like? And then like people don't realize, yeah, they're having 3-4 cups of whatever, or they drink 10 cans of Coke a day, whatever. Like, so like we've all got our thing. So understanding that in detail, I think is really, really important.
No, in that same space and everything, and being along those lines, but I'd love to hear from Chris and Angie on this topic as well. I know that your home country, because you mentioned, and I thought I picked up an accent, and it's the Australian accent. We used to have an Australian guy, Shaquille Latimer, who was very big in dog racing. It has been on our network before, and he's actually taken a little bit of a hiatus, but he might come back at some point or another. But I know he was big in the gambling industry. But one thing that Australia has done recently that more countries are thinking about, and we do a whole show on bullying, is this notion of not letting our kids touch as much social media and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on this, because Australia is the first one and it's leading the forefront where they put a ban on kids that are between, I think, 14 and 18 or something like that in that space.
Yeah, I think it's anyone under 16 that's been banned from using social media. I think it's only positive because we live in a time where we're more disconnected, isolated, and depressed than ever before. Yet we're in a more connected evolution than any time before. So the thing is it's like this quandary. And I think, I know even what I do, I like the more I get offline and actually enjoy the real world, the happier I become.
I got a question though about that. How do they stop the kids from using a VPN and connecting via another country?
Well, there's a will, there's a way, right? Like you're not going to stop everybody, but the thing is, the whole thing is adding the age restriction parameters to it, and like they're just doing their best. And for a lot of people, they won't be. But if like if you want to sneak out of the parents out of your bedroom window when you're meant to be sleeping, like when you're a child, and you're going to sneak out and try a cigarette, or you're going to drink whatever it is, like you're going to do it anyway. Like there's no stopping it. But the cyberbullying and the teen suicide and all that type of stuff, like there's some massive social issues that have been created because of what we call social media.
Yeah, that's definitely been. But I'm like you, Christopher. I've been trying to figure out how they're going to do that because, like you said, Ben, if folks want to find a way to get around it, it's like the kid is told not to go to the party, and then they go to the party anyway. So kids are very resourceful. I have two nephews that are 16 and 17 as of this year, and one of them is getting ready to go off to college. And I know that my brother will not have that much control over his life when he goes off to college. Even if he goes to one of the colleges, which is one of the 4 that he's been accepted to locally and everything, he'll still be his own independent person. And even now, when he's in high school and living with it, well, he spends time between both my brother's side of the family and his mother's side of the family, but none of them have total control. I'm sure that there are times that they sneak out and get away with things and all along those lines.
Well, we've done a similar thing, here in the States. There's been a couple of states which have essentially banned pornography if you're under, 18 or whatever it is. I don't even 21. I'm not sure. But I mean, it didn't do anything. It's not going to do anything because a VPN is ubiquitous.
North Carolina is one of those states. There was a popular app that, as far as I know, is still banned from the pornography industry and everything like that. But like you said, people will find end arounds and everything like that. But technically speaking, I think it's been in effect now for almost a year and a half, 2 years. But Pornhub is not supposed to be in North Carolina, and that's one of the bigger pornography apps and everything like that. But how are you going to stop somebody if they're using other apps? And
it's the Barbara Streisand effect. I'm sure you've all heard of this.
Exactly. Yeah.
As soon as you say don't go there, everybody goes there.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things. At least we were taught in the Marines. You never give an order that is going to be disobeyed. It just undermines your authority. So I'm not a big fan. I'm obviously I'm a big fan of allowing people to make their own judgments about things. And I do agree that there are a substantial number of problems that are associated with social media and pornography and everything else that's online. But I'm not sure banning it is the right way to go.
Speaking of banning, and I brought this up on one of our news programs and everything. I just heard you say that you're a Marine and you probably learned a lot of leadership skills from being a Marine. And I'd love to learn what some of those leadership skills are. But before I get to that, there has been talk because of the finances of the military about actually, because y'all just celebrated y'all 250th anniversary, either getting rid of the Marines or folding the Marines back into the Navy and everything like that. But I just wanted your take on that, because I've heard this conversation going out where people are wondering about the finances of how much we spend on defense. And with that, they're talking about possibly getting rid of the Marines. Who knows? Coast Guard might be next, or one of the other branches. But what is your take on this notion of getting rid of that?
Yeah, that's not new at all. That conversation has been had many, 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 many times over the hundreds of years that we've been in existence. And it'll never happen. The Marines they're here to stay. They're part of American culture, and they do more with less. In terms of our fiscal conservativeness, we actually have the smallest budget, and we do the most with it. And so people talk about that all the time. It'll never happen.
Yeah, I believe it won't happen either and everything. Just curious, both you as a Marine and definitely Ben, when you were doing whatever work you were doing in Australia before coming to Arkansas, and even you, Angie, what are some of the leadership skills that you wish more people had? I know that here on this network, our founder, Nick Palveda, he's one of the 2 founders, along with Kim Calhoun. He's a pension attorney. She's a engineer by trade, and both of them are big proponents of us learning fiscal literacy and other things that are not necessarily taught in school. But I was just wondering, what are some of the leadership skills that you have learned through your jobs and through your training, whether it was military or jobs, that you wish you had been taught in the school system? So I'll start with you, Chris.
So the one that is actually the most pertinent to my particular industry is leadership by example. And the reason that I say that is because the number of clients that I have who implement a learning management system and put training on there that is meant for the frontline troops, that's meant for the salespeople, it's meant for the accountants, it's meant for those, in the trenches, the grunts that are doing the daily work, that is 100% of my clients, but the number of clients that actually put training on there that pertains to middle management is substantially lower, and the number that put training on there for the C-suite is non-existent. And it's interesting because all of the companies that I work with will say we really want to use this learning management system in part to influence the culture of our organization. We really want to, use this as a way to cement who we are and what we do. And yet the troops don't see the leadership buying into that or taking that. It's always something that we push, and it's never something that's absorbed. So my big thing for companies in general is culture starts from the very top, and you have to be, if you're the CEO, you have to be seen doing whatever it is that you're espousing, doing whatever it is that you insist your people are doing. You better be the first person up in line to do that and to show everybody that you are doing it, because without that example, it's just everybody sees it for what it is, just lip service, and nothing's going to change.
It makes sense. What about you, Ben, and everything? Because one of the things when I think about Australia, and I'm just going to tease you a little bit, is that y'all have some of the most dangerous animals out there. Because my friends from Australia and I've yet to visit the country are like, you better be careful when you go there, if you ever go there, because there are some animals there that might look innocent, but they're not as innocent as they look, and everything like that. I know that some people will tease about the koala bear being a very bit of a vicious creature as the kangaroo and everything like that. But also y'all have some small spiders that people may not see that are also very poisonous, and even some lizards and other things along those lines. So I've always been told that survival might be a skill set you need in Australia.
Well, I think it's sometimes harder to survive here in the US than it is in Australia, because we can see the animals going to kill us. We can't see the drive-by shootings that are happening here, or the school shootings here. So I think it's a whole different thing. But I usually say that everything's going to kill you in Australia, and the most dangerous thing are the women. So you've really got to be careful of that. I think at the end of the day, asking quality questions and questioning everything is a leadership skill. And demonstrating through execution, as Chris was really talking about. Like, everyone wants to talk about it, be a manager that just points and stuff, but there's a big difference between people who can get off and do it and really show through example, and they just create a different team.
Yeah. What about you, Angie, and everything? Because I was actually just thinking about even how it can impact our arts world as well. I've had a friend that just recently found out that they are not going to be a candidate for a executive job, but they're probably still going to try to do some lobbying for that executive job, because they feel that sometimes we don't even listen to the voices of the community, and that they might be the better person for the job in the sense of having allies in the community and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on this notion of how important leadership is, even with your writing and everything like that.
Oh, yeah. I agree with everything that Ben and Christopher said. You have to lead by example. And one thing I think that I've learned that is really important is trying to understand the people that you're working with, so that you can work with them in a way that works for both of you, so that you're not just talking at them, that you're talking in a way that they can understand, and they are communicating back in a way that that both sides are being understood, and that you're talking to each other and getting across what you need done and what is being done. I think that's really important, to really work with your people and not just at them, not to just talk and expect that they're understanding without communicating clearly.
You brought that up, and actually Ben finally brought it up even when he was talking about the product that he has and having to learn more about menopause than he ever thought he would have to know, and everything along those lines. But I was just wondering, how much do you feel that corporations are not doing a good job of understanding communication skills? And I'll start with you, Christopher, and everything, because I do know that there are different communication skills that everybody has and everything like that. And they say that that's the number one problem in relationships, but I would also argue it's the number one problem in business relationships as well, is that there's a lack of communications and understanding the various communication styles, because not everybody communicates the same way and everything like that. And sometimes you also have to bend over and respect people's different cultures and everything like that. I remember one of the things that I thought was a great example of that was when Measurement had a physical office and everything. There was a young gentleman that was of a Muslim background and everything, and the society understood that at certain points of the day he would need to have time for prayer because that's part of the Muslim culture. So they gave him that space to have that prayer time for his particular faith and everything along those lines. So I'm just wondering your thoughts around whether we're doing a good job in corporate environments of understanding communications. And the flip side of that is I do think that sometimes we do a good job when we understand that parents are out there. And I know that even here in North Carolina, where I am, there have been companies that have provided daycare and other things that understanding that some of the people that are working are parents. So they give playrooms and stuff like that. I know that SAS has done that, and there have been others. I think Cisco did that as well. But I just wanted your take on whether we're doing a good job of understanding communication skills when it comes to our fellow employees.
So that's a great question, and it's one that I can't really answer, unfortunately, because I don't work in the companies that that we service, and I only see their training teams or maybe an HR manager. So I get the communication from them to me, and we've very specific established channels that we use in order to be able to get what we need. And we communicate back through those same channels, but within the organizations, I'm not unfortunately a very good resource for that. We do within our organization. We very seldom meet online, and we never use cameras. That's it's a company policy because we're on video all day long, or we're on calls all day long. So it's becomes kind of exhausting. So most of what we do is text based, and we have a very specific format in how we do things. And the format always ends with an FRD, final result desired, which is, these are the details and the things that I want to have happen. But at the end of the day, this is what the final product needs to look like, or the final result needs to look like. And whatever else you do and however else you do it, I don't really care. But this is what it needs to be at the end. And as long as you've got that, people are kind of free to be creative within their own box. And so that works for us. I'm not certain how much that would work for a company that's, larger than us, or substantially larger than us.
What about you, Ben? You definitely have a company. I know a lot of it is remote, but you also have, I imagine, some employees there in Arkansas. So how much do you try to understand people's different communication skills?
Well, it's critical to the success and communication of the company, and working with people to optimize for them and for them to win, right? Like if you want to help anyone win, you've got to be able to get to their level and help them understand their goals. So I think it's critical.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. You had mentioned earlier, Ben, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this as well, the notion of the badness of certain corporations. And yes, certain corporations can definitely have a bad reputation, whether it's the gun that you kind of alluded to with the gun violence and everything like that, but also the pharmaceutical company, because I am in North Carolina and we've got a lot of pharmaceutical companies. And yes, it can be a very detrimental industry, and I'll be honest about it and all along those lines. But I'm just wondering, what is your take on, are there any kind of these corporations that are seen as possibly bad that could maybe have a good side as well? Because just to give you an example, my mom is retired and been retired for about 10 years, but she was the first head of the Golden Leaf Foundation. So if you know anything about tobacco and the tobacco settlement money, that was the foundation that was founded by the tobacco settlement money in order to get people out of tobacco and into other industries and all along those lines. So she was the first president. I think they've had 2 or 3 presidents since then and everything like that. But I just wanted your take about some of these quote unquote sin products, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or anything, or even drugs that might have a beneficial side to them.
Well, there seems to be a flip side to everything, and it all depends on who's leading the research or who's funding the research and what's their objective, right? But good, bad, ugly, like it's amazing how magic mushrooms even get considered as bad and dangerous, but now they're leading the research on anti-aging, reversing Alzheimer's, all this type of stuff, right? There's massive benefits for people even dealing with depression and everything that goes with that, right? So we're still in a world where hemp is not necessarily good, but yeah, there's so many strategic alternative uses for these products. But I don't know, it's a hard thing to be always being aware of, and someone's pulling some strings somewhere.
Yeah, there's definitely some government influences on a lot of these things. There's no doubt about that, whether it's Big Pharma, whether it's NRA, or whether it's a number of other things. So yeah, there's definitely those people that are pulling those strings, even to your point about hemp, because there are definitely more and more states that have legalized marijuana, particularly for medical marijuana and some of the hemp uses and all along those lines, but even some of the kind of like drinks that are out there as well that are hemp based and everything like that. So it does seem like it's getting more approval in terms of public approval, but whether it's getting that government approval, that's another story. And whether they'll ever get that government story, that'll be the question. Because I've even heard people that have said that they thought that it has helped in some of their neurodivergence research. So what is your take on that, Angie? Have you heard about some of the fine uses of hemp even for neurodivergence research?
I have not, although I do know some people who use CBD and other hemp products for relaxation or, anxiety. Um, I'm not very familiar with that in the field of neurodivergence, though, I have to say.
No, that makes sense. And like I said, I do know some people that are doing that and everything. One of the things we talk about on this show oftentimes, and I'd love to hear all of the three of your thoughts around this, is this notion, and it comes up in a lot of conversations, whether it's in these fields that we're talking about today or other fields, like even the creative fields, of the imposter syndrome. So I'd love to hear how y'all got past that. So I'll start with you, Andy, because I know that probably when you first said you were going to write this book, because the imposter syndrome is this belief that you're not as going to be as successful as you think you're going to be. Because I know even in my own life, I have had that inner critic, that inner conversation. And sometimes that's another word for the imposter syndrome, where I've had, whether it's been in relationships or when it's been in business, I've talked myself out of things. And by the time I finally talked myself back into them, those opportunities had gone out the door, whether it was in the romance space or in the business space and everything like that. So I just wondering, how much did you have to develop your own self-confidence even to write this book? And what advice would you give to others that are trying to find that inner voice and that inner voice of positivity?
Oh, I have definitely had to fight the imposter syndrome and the feeling like I don't know what I'm doing or I don't know what I'm talking about. And I still deal with it. I mean, I get ready to go on a podcast and I think I have no idea what I'm going to say. I do this all the time. I I have been on podcasts, I think 4 or 5 times this week, and every time I sit down, I think I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. I do not know what I'm talking about. But of course, that's just kind of our brain going, "Oh, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous." But really, if you really lead, I think, from your heart and do what you really believe in, sure, you have to have the skills. You can't say, I'm going to sit down and write a book if you've never studied writing and don't know how a book is written. But once you have your skills and you know what you're doing, I think it's a matter of just telling that editing voice, I call it in my brain, I don't really need your services right now. I'm going to write the book and later we'll come back and edit it and I'll let you help me. But right now, I need you to just let me write this book, or I need you to let me go on this podcast and talk about something that I know about. And I think it's really, you just have to kind of learn to set aside that voice and not allow it to take over and steer the ship.
Yep. What about you, Ben? I'm sure that even when you decided to move from Australia to Arkansas, and maybe it was a lady that brought you here, or maybe it was other things that brought you here as well. But I'm sure that whether it was the move all the way across the country or whether it was this business, that there were probably times that you were going like, what am I getting myself into? And everything like that. So how did you deal with that imposter syndrome, and what advice would you give to others?
Every day, even when I'm putting on my underwear, I'm arguing with myself about am I doing it right. So you know what? That's just some of the realms of life you've got to deal with. Like they say, it's always the gremlins in your head that are the scarier than anything else, right? So the thing I always say to myself when I'm out there, when I'm doing something, I'm like, well, no one's come to save me. So you know what? Like tackle in and let's get it done, right? Because that's the reality of it. And I think the sooner you can understand that and go, you know what? If I want this, I got to make this happen, because there's no silver spoon that someone's going to gift to me, because yeah, that's not happening. So and I think that the sooner you can respect and appreciate that, the more stable and that becomes, right.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Christopher? Have you run across that imposter syndrome? I'm sure even as a Marine, there might have been times that you were in doubt about what was going on and things along those lines. But how did you deal with that imposter syndrome, whether it was in the military or whether it was in the corporate world?
Yeah, it was less in the Marines because you're wearing the rank on the outside, and people automatically I guess to some degree they assume you know what you're doing, but they spent so much time training you. In the Marines, for example, for the first 6 months after you get your commission, you don't even see an enlisted person. You do nothing but train to become a basic rifle platoon commander, and that's everybody in the Marine Corps is trained to do that. And then after that, you go to your advanced school. So it's a year before you even set foot in front of somebody who's a junior enlisted guy. So by that time, you've pretty much got the kinks worked out. But as an entrepreneur, for sure, we're coming up on in 5 days from now, we're coming up on our 8-year anniversary. But that first year, it was me and a part-time developer. And when you're calling yourself the CEO of the company, but you're really the captain of a rowboat, and it's not impressive if everybody knows you've got a rowboat. So that you're hoping that they don't see that, and you know that you're in a rowboat, and you're trying to pretend that it's bigger than it is, just so that you can get some business in the door. It's tough. It really is. You just have to suck it up and try and say everything that you can with a straight face, because it's pretty laughable if you don't.
Now that makes sense and everything. Do the Marines have the same thing that I believe it's the Air Force or the Army have, which is that you have a certain amount of time to get your next rank up? Because I know that my cousin who made it up to, I believe, Lieutenant Colonel, never made it up to full colonel and everything like that, but I think he was given a certain amount of time to get up to the next rank. He's still doing quite well, and he and his wife are working on various businesses. He just got named or won an election in Georgia, so he's gone now sitting on the city council. I think it's in Fayette, Georgia, if I remember correctly. But he's also working with a company that was developing warp technology and all along those lines. So even though he's out of the military, I do know that he was given a certain amount of time to get up to the next rank and everything like that. And I think he was in the Army or the Air Force. I can't remember which one, but I was wondering, the Marines have that same system?
Well, they all work, all of the military branches work the same, but the difference between an enlisted career and an officer career and how the promotions are handled is very different. So with the enlisted guys, you have a contract, and your contract is 4 years or 6 years or whatever it happens to be. And at the end of the contract, as long as you're in good standing, you can re-enlist again. And with an officer, it's a little bit different. You have a commission, not a contract. And so at that point, there are, like, for example, from second lieutenant to first lieutenant, typically it's 2 years. Well, it is 2 years. You're going to get promoted. And then from second lieutenant to captain, or first lieutenant to captain, rather, it's typically another 2 years, give or take a couple of months, depending on how fast they're promoting. After that, what normally happens is you're right. You have to get promoted or passed over twice. And once you get passed over twice, you're kind of forced out. But it's different. It's a little bit different in that regard. I was never in that particular boat because I stopped it as a captain. So, my promotions were pretty much guaranteed up until that point.
Up until the captain level and everything like that. This is for all three of you. Who are some of the people that have influenced you? I mean, we talked about Walmart, and I was just wondering whether it's a military person or whether it's somebody that might be surprising our listeners. But I'll start with you, Christopher, and work my way around. But who are some of the people that have influenced you, whether it was an entrepreneur or even in your military career? So who are some of your influences in your life that have been out there, whether they are a famous person or might be somebody in your family, for all I know?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, the biggest influence on how we do business, I only encountered this person through their writing. The person's name is Atul Gawande. I'm going to mangle the name. Gawande. He wrote a book called The Checklist Manifesto. And in my opinion, the Checklist Manifesto should be mandatory reading for every leader in general, but specifically for every entrepreneur. And the purpose of the book is to teach that your processes as an organization can be immeasurably improved if everybody is following the exact same checklist. And where he got his ideas from was the surgical operating room. And his checklists are what he noticed, the reason that the impetus behind creating this book was that there were lots of hospital organizations who were having post-surgical complications. And he noticed that those organizations who had very stringent checklists in place had substantially fewer post-surgical complications. And the checklist is simple things like count the number of sponges before the surgery, count the number of sponges after the surgery. If the number is different, investigate. And he uses as his example airline pilots who will not go anywhere near the aircraft until they've done the pre-flight checklist, and then there's the takeoff checklist and the in-flight checklist. So everybody has these very specific steps that they follow in these procedures. And he said, why isn't every company doing this, essentially? And prior to reading this book, we had some things that we did in generally the same order, but if somebody was tired, things were getting missed, or if a new person was brought on, things were getting skipped. And so what we found out was that for every single process that we have in our company, and we do have this now, there is a very specific set of steps that must be followed. And they're detailed enough that you can take the average person off the street, give them the checklist, and they'll be able to execute it. They can find the link to wherever they're going. They've got the credentials right there. They know exactly what button to click when they're doing something. And so we can migrate data from point A to point B. We can set up and tear down a learning management system. All of that stuff is made possible the same way every single time because we have these procedures in place. And without that, it would be a lot more difficult. It would virtually impossible for us to do what we do at scale. You can't service 50 clients or more if you don't know if everybody's having to invent things every single time. Does that make sense? I don't know if
it makes a lot of sense and everything. What about yourself, Ben? And I'll get to Angie as well. But who is somebody that has influenced you?
So one of a big influence recently has been a guy called Alex Hormozi, and how they scale, and him and his wife, how they scale their businesses and run their businesses. I've been a lot in their coaching program and training programs to scale a company. And it's just impressive to actually start to really see what's the compounding rate, the amount of effort you need to actually deploy nowadays to actually get the success. It's way more than what most people think. And it's how to gain a competitive advantage in any market regardless. So I think from a recent one that's just very practical, I think him and Layla, what they're doing there is quite impressive.
Just to throw in there, Ben, we actually have a custom GPT that we use in our organization that is based solely on his books. And so whenever we have some kind of a marketing initiative, whether it's cold email outreach or something, we always run the plan through that custom GPT, and it will spit out advice, recommendations, suggestions as if it were Alex Hormozi. So he's phenomenal, as a great influence.
Yeah, great. Before I get to Angie's influences and everything, just really quickly, Ben and Christopher, I kind of alluded to it before. Most entrepreneurs I know work at least, I'd say 60 to 80 hours a week. Some might even be pushing near 100 and everything like that. So I was just wondering, what do you think your average work weeks are? And then I'll get to Angie and her influences. But Ben, how many hours a week are you working?
I'm probably working 80 hours a week right now. Certainly as we're scaling, like we got big goals, onboarding 1,000 distributors over the next 12 months, scaling to actually feed over 1 million people. So there's a few big things we're trying to do and trying to achieve. So I think the effort now compounds and pays off later.
That makes sense.
But when you do what you love, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. What about you, Christopher?
In the early days, we were doing that. These days, no. These days, I 10 hours a week, maybe. My job is primarily just to talk with customers when they're first onboarding, and then just check that the messaging is done correctly in whatever outreach we're doing. But that doesn't take a lot of time. Other than that, we've got really good people, and they've got, again, really good checklists. So it happens pretty much without my involvement, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's a good thing and everything. Who are some of your influences, Angie? And then I've got a question about this food program for Ben, but I'll get to that after you tell me your influences.
I would have to say my biggest influence in my life was Maya Angelou, the author.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote poetry, she wrote memoir, she wrote music, I believe. I know she wrote poetry and memoir. She was a dancer, she was a singer, and she never let the fact that she was a Black woman in the South interfere with her belief of who she was and what she was capable of. And she was just an astonishingly talented woman and accomplished so much in her life. And I have just been in awe of her since I discovered her when I was a teenager. I have always just really admired and respected her. And I hope that I could have even at least a percentage of the influence on my readers that she had on me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that she served on some boards as well. She was actually very involved with the National Black Theater Festival, which is in Winston-Salem, that I have gone to regularly and everything like that. So it's definitely, she was involved in a lot of organizations. And you're right, she definitely was multi-talented, not just a writer, but also in a lot of other realms as well, including serving on boards. Ben, my younger brother, has done it now, I think, for 2 or 3 years. And it's just a small community. He's fed a couple of families using, I want to say, one of the major grocery stores here and everything like that during the Thanksgiving season, supplying them with turkeys and food and everything like that. But you just said that you got a project, I guess, with your company to feed, sounded like you said, 1 million and everything like that. So tell me about this initiative and what you're doing to achieve this initiative, and where is this going to be? Is it going to be worldwide, or is it going to be a targeted area that's focused at?
Yeah, so we're actually building a mushroom-based instant meal system, as well as mushroom-based jerky, and we're using that to have a goal of feeding over 1 million people, donating over 1 million meals over the next 12 months, and it'll be people for disaster relief. There's a lot of church groups feeding the homeless, even expanding into the military-based MRE programs in that regard. So it's just giving people a different alternative to a meal that doesn't taste like slop in a bag. But yeah, there's many angles for it, from people who deal with celiac to people who have immune issues and things like that. So it's just, one of our goals is just to really make a difference, and feeding 1 million people kind of can really change that, from school kids and everyone all the way through.
That makes sense. For Christopher and Angie, how are you finding ways to help the greater community in your own neighborhoods and like that? I mentioned that on last Tuesday we had our open house and everything like that, so about a week and a day ago and everything in that space. But I do remember that the caterer, because it was raining, so they supplied more food than we could actually eat and everything like that. So we did make it available to some of the homeless community. Actually, a comedian friend of mine here, D Wish, and one of my coworkers went over there and fed probably a decent amount of people that were there and everything like that might not have had a meal on that particular day and everything like that. So I just wondering, what are some of your own community affairs that you're doing in your own lives to help people that might be less fortunate? Because I know that that's something that's important for all of us to try to do any way that we can. But I was just wondering, in your own life, what are some of the things you're doing? So I'll start with you, Christopher, but I want to hear from Angie as well.
Sure. So there is a national organization called Junior Achievement, and they've got a series of regional affiliates. Junior Achievement of South Central Pennsylvania is responsible for teaching programs pre-K through 12th grade, focusing on entrepreneurship, personal finance, STEM, etc. And so they reach, in South Central Pennsylvania, they reach 110,000 students this year. And they need 10,000 volunteers to be able to implement those programs. So about twice a week, I will go to a high school and I will teach personal finance to groups of students. And so it's not just me. There's usually about 20 or so volunteers that just do budgeting. They call it the Budget Builder program. And so that's usually about 6 students per group. There's 2 groups per day. And so I will have 6 students, and for the 2 hours that I'm with them. We'll walk them through a budgeting scenario, and they'll learn the ins and outs of a 401k, and they'll learn how to purchase a car and what your debt to income ratio is, and all of these different skills that I was never taught going through school. And I think it's really important that we do that. But their programs are, again, K through or pre-K through 12th grade. I normally focus on 6th grade students, and I normally focus on junior and senior in high school.
Yeah. What about you, Angie? What are some of the things you're doing in your community to help with the community outreach and definitely community programs to help various folks, whether that's the homeless or the folks that might be less fortunate?
We are very fortunate in our family, and we do a lot of donating. There's a group here in Little Rock called The Van that does outreach with homeless people, and we periodically donate to them. We've donated tents and socks, when you're homeless, warm socks, or, and we donate to organizations that feed people. We donate to food pantries, the Arkansas Food Bank. I am disabled and not able to get out a lot, but I am very fortunate to be able to give the one thing that there's just not enough of, which is just money to buy the food or the tent or the socks, to actually go out. Someone else can go out and give those things to the people who need them. And we are very fortunate that we're able to do that. And we do not take that for granted at all. We are constantly talking about, who do we want to support? How can we support them? We have a little free pantry in our neighborhood that my husband buys treats to go in there every week, hot chocolate or fresh bread or some candy, so that people who are relying on a food pantry can have something a little nice, a little different than just your cereal and your noodles and things like that. We just want people to have the dignity of being able to get what they need from these organizations that are there to provide for them.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. Just really quickly, what are some of the things I mentioned that both Nick and Kim, the founders of this network, are big on what's not being taught in the schools? But what are some things that you wish were being taught in the schools other than those that we've mentioned, like fiscal literacy and other things like that? So I'll start with you, Angie. What are some of the things that you wish had been were taught in the schools now that weren't taught when you were in school, or that you're not seeing taught with people in your own family, whether you've got kids of your own or whether you've got nieces or nephews? Like I mentioned, I've got my 2 nephews and everything, but what are some things that you wish were taught in the school system that isn't being taught?
I wish there was more of a focus on mental health and not just physical health, that people understood more about things like depression and anxiety and neurodivergence and all of these mental health issues. There are so many people who fall into a depression or an anxiety, or they have some other illness like OCD, who never know that there actually is help for what's going on with them. They think that there's something wrong with them, but they don't get to the point where they know that, hey, I could call my doctor or I could call a therapist. And it's not just the stigma of mental health, although that's a big thing, but there's also just not an awareness of what these things look like in the real world, and how to know when your down mood is really something that you need help with, or how to know that being a little nervous sometimes is fine, but if you're constantly nervous and anxious, that maybe you could get some help with that. I think there are so many people who just don't know or understand that it's okay to get help and how to get help.
That makes sense. Before I get to yours, Christopher, and that same line, I was involved for a number of years, and we may bring it back next year with the Road to the Apollo, which is based on the Apollo Theater and their contest that is done in New York, but it was actually a veterans fundraiser. So Captain Newborn, his real first name, not his rank, because he never served in the military, from what I understand, and everything like that. But he was very much about veterans advocacy. And one of the things he talks about regularly is the amount of things that are not done in the veterans community to help people that are dealing with mental struggles and everything like that. And there's also a number of things going on with the VA around some of the chemicals that people were also impacted by, whether that was Agent Orange or things along those lines. So as a military person, I just wanted your take on that, because I know that one of the things that Captain Newborn says regularly whenever we do those shows, and we've done them throughout the state of North Carolina and everything, is that not on his watch. And I know that that's kind of a cliche kind of remark that people make about a lot of these things that we want to change and everything like that, but he is very adamant about trying to change the way that we treat mental health, particularly among our veterans. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, that's huge. And it is an ongoing problem, and I think it stems from the culture that we inculcate in our brand new recruits, which is that you need to suck it up. You need to be tough personally. I don't want to hear your whining. I don't want to hear your complaining. And so we are not taught to acknowledge that we are struggling. We are taught to push through. And it becomes something that is deeply, deeply ingrained. If you've been in for any period of time, when you hear that kind of thing, you need to be strong at all times. Showing weaknesses is not going to be acceptable in the unit because you're going to be looked down on. You are going to do everything you can to make sure that your problems are internalized, and that's going to have long-term detrimental effects. I think it's wonderful that there are people who are involved in calling that out and saying, hey, look, there's a better way to deal with it. Unfortunately, we are nowhere near the end zone for that one. And getting people to that is going to be a long, long struggle.
Yeah. What are some of the things you would like to have changed in the school system? I know I kind of diverted based on Angie's answer, but what are some of the things you would like to have changed in the school system?
So I am on an advisory committee with Dover High School, which is near here where I live. And I am, as a community advisor, what they do when they receive Title I, Title II, Title III money from the government, they have their teachers put in a wish list for things, either equipment that they would want or courses they would like to teach. And then they run that by the advisory committee. And our job is to say, as an employer, and particularly as an employer of a software company, these are the skills that are very important to me, and these are what I need an entry-level employee to have and to be able to do. And is it possible for you to be able to accommodate that, within the confines of your school year? And so I would like more schools to have these community advisory groups, so that they can align what they're teaching with the needs of the actual employers who are going to be making use of their graduates once they get out.
That makes sense. What about you, Ben? What's something you'd like to see change in the school system, whether it's here or in Australia?
Well, I think just some real life survival skills for a lot of people, right? Like, it's just like I'm seeing more and more people who, can't communicate with someone that isn't on the other side of a device. So conversational communication, but like just everything from managing money to understanding what credit cards are, to debts, credit score, and everything else that goes with that, right? So it's amazing how people don't even know how to change a tire or fill up. Like, you see people who drive their electric cars to the gas station to fill them up, and they get bamboozled by this. I'm like, how? Like, what piece of the tree did you fall off to think that you got to put gas in your electric car? And this is just, I don't think a lot of people really know how to survive.
Yeah, the survival is a big thing, and all along those lines, and that is something that I know is taught in the military. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people that don't have basic survival skills. I think that there's a lot of people that don't even know how to survive on a minimal amount of money, because there are a lot of people, if they are in that job market and they lose their job, they wouldn't be able to survive for a matter of days, much less a matter of maybe even hours, without having that money coming in. So, Christopher, what's your thoughts around that? Because I mean, that's one of the things that I do know from having friends in the military, is that y'all can survive off of the basics. Most of you, not saying everybody in the military can, but a lot of people are taught those skills in the military on how to survive on very little and everything like that. Whereas a lot of the people that did not go through military training can't necessarily do that.
Well, I mean, it's true, and the military is very good at that. I'd been in for 2 years, I guess, when I first got sent to survival school in Bridgeport, California, at the Mountain Warfare Training Center. So I'm in the middle of the winter time at 6,000 feet in the Sierra Nevadas, and it's me and a buddy, and we have to go a week. We've got no food. We're sleeping in snow caves. We've got a series of projects that we got to do. But you and your buddy are, a mile away from the nearest team. And they have an instructor who comes by on snow machine once a day to check on you and make sure you're still alive. They don't come near you. They don't talk to you. You just give them a thumbs up. So, when you're put into that type of a situation, going a day or two without food or well, in that case, it was a week without food, but going a day or two without some money is kind of a small thing. Everything after that looks like gravy. So I agree that privation is a good way to recalibrate people's suffering meter. And, if you get the opportunity to do that for your kids, take them out on a camping trip or something for, a weekend and let them see what rough really is, then they realize that, yeah, okay, the heat's set at 68 instead of 70, you can probably suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah, probably gets like a big deal with it. Hey, Ben, along those same lines, I don't know, because, there's popular foods where they're not really popular, but there are foods that are very cheap. But I don't know about in Arkansas, but I know here in North Carolina, if you mention Spam or if you mention some of those other 99-cent soups and everything like that, people will be laughing at you and going like, yeah, I'm not having that, even though that might be what they need to have in order to survive and everything like that. So you can find some very cheap foods that are out there, but a lot of people are afraid of the stigma of having to eat those things because of the names associated with them and everything like that. So if you run across that, Ben, in Arkansas, where people are not necessarily wanting to buy bologna because bologna might be a little bit of quote unquote cheap food.
I think it all depends how you're growing up and who's in your family, because there's also people here that'll eat squirrels and everything that is crawling in any tree. So like if it's out of the house, and they call that wild game, as a squirrel, right? So like I think it just comes down to the culture and personality and how much you've been spoon fed and exposed to the world. Because when you travel the world, and in some parts of the world, they'll eat cockroaches and bugs, and it's funny. There's a big farm in just outside Austin, which actually breeds roaches and things like that for alternative protein food. So like it's just like it's big in Asian cultures, but it's starting to get out here because. And these are the things, like it's just what you think is crazy becomes now the next delicacy, becomes the next food group. Like it's all these cycles and trends.
All the cycles and trends. Get ready to wind up. I certainly enjoyed the conversation with all three of you and everything. I try to do is about an hour and a half or something along those lines. And a couple of questions I ask everybody at the end. But before I get to those two questions, for each one of you and everything, what is something that folks would find unique about the area where you live at and unique about yourselves that they haven't learned in this conversation? So I'll start with you, Angie. What is something that they would find unique about Little Rock, Arkansas, and also about yourself that they haven't learned about in this particular conversation? Like I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, but what's something unique about you and your town?
Little Rock has a mountain right outside of town. It's called Pinnacle Mountain. People climb it. They go on picnics in the area around it. There's a playground. There are pavilions, and there's just a huge. Didn't mention this, but Arkansas is very natural. There's tons of paths and rivers and mountains all over the place, and it's just a beautiful state. I love it here. And something unique about me, you might notice I'm wearing a novelty t-shirt. I only own novelty t-shirts. I don't own like normal clothes.
What about you, Ben? What's something unique about your part of Arkansas? I think it's a little bit outside of Little Rock, as well as something that you might find unique about your own life.
Well, one of the cool things about my life is I get to travel around the U.S. I travel around 40,000 miles a year in a coach, travel around the U.S., going to different events and working with people all around the country. And one of the novel things is we're building a 28-acre mushroom farm, state-of-the-art mushroom farm facility here in Pea Ridge, Arkansas. And most people are like, where? Like in Arkansas? Like I'm like, yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. So It's going to be pretty interesting, teaching people how to grow mushrooms, harvest mushrooms, turn mushrooms into food, and a whole lot of fun stuff.
Sounds good. Just because I do believe in being fair and everything like that. Most people know that to watch this show, but I was a member of a voice troupe, and it was involved with my friend IPC, who you can find on Instagram. But I was a member of the Funky Eye Puppets. I need to get in touch with him and see if he needs my voice on that as well. And of course, I enjoy doing these podcasts that I've been part of Pod TV for a number of years, and I'm also the staff historian at the Cultural Arts Center that I mentioned and everything along those lines. But what about yourself, Christopher? What's something that is unusual or unique about you, or that folks might find interesting about your part? Because you're in the Northeast, you're not in the Southeast.
So Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania, and a lot of people don't know that this is the perfect location if you want to access big urban areas like DC and Baltimore and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and New York City, but you are in a nice small town. We are right at the intersection of 81, 83, and 76, so you can be absolutely anywhere in less than 4 hours. We got a great train system. We've got an international airport. At all, it's a wonderful small town feel to it. So that's my Chamber of Commerce pitch for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But
and what about yourself? What's some unique hobby that maybe you're into, or something along those lines?
Not a unique hobby, but one of my newest passions is supporting the Harrisburg area roller derby league. This is a sport that I've never seen growing up, and I've only recently become acquainted with, and it is actually a really enjoyable sport to watch. It's aggressive. It's fast paced, and so I'm a big proponent of it. So we give our money and our time to that organization.
It sounds good. That's actually an event in North Carolina that I wanted to go to that I missed. That same friend that was doing the Road to the Apollo did a show. We did not do a Road to the Apollo this year, but he did a go-go, which is a form of music out of DC and everything. So he did a concert with 2 go-go bands and a Frankie Beverly tribute band, but was held at Dorton Arena, which is one of our popular fairgrounds and everything like that. But that was the other event that was going to be a week or two later that I was hoping to go to, that I did not make it to this year, but I think they'll be back in next season. So that's on my bucket list of things to do in 2026, is to go watch this roller derby, because that looks like it would be a fun event. I actually ran into another event that people will be surprised that North Carolina has, but they have a professional, or maybe it's a semi-professional curling team. So I actually stopped at one of those fast food restaurants, I think it was a KFC, and ran across some people that were actually getting ready to go to a match, and that was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. But yeah, there is actually a curling team here, just like there is some of that X game kind of stuff, like with the skates and stuff, because it's a popular one of those arenas that's in Holly Springs, which is a small town as well. So we have some unusual sports in addition to the baseball, which everybody knows because of the Bull Durhams, and the hockey because of the Hurricanes, and some of the other things that exist that folks would expect, including college basketball and college football and everything. But yeah, there's curling here, and there's also the X Games, kind of like stunt bicycles. I forget what they call them, but you know what I'm talking about. But they have those as well and everything like that. So, and just we get ready to head out the door, the thing that I get everybody to ask and that I bring up as a question and everything is there's anything that you haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about that you want to share? Now is your time to do that. If you want to pitch the book, tell people how they can get in touch with the book. And I'm a big believer in and I kind of alluded to it on this show a couple of times, that the more we spread positivity, the better the world is and everything. So I get everybody on every last one of my shows, no matter who they are, to give their message of positivity. So if you'll end with a message of positivity, and I'll go round robin, so I'll end with Chris and everything. But definitely, if you will share things that you didn't get to, that you wish you had gotten to, how the book can be gotten, and your message of positivity.
I just want people to know that who you are, no matter who that is just exactly who you're supposed to be. I just can't say that enough. And I would love for people to come visit me at profoundcreativity.com. I've got a freebie that I give away called The Spiral, and it's really about thinking in circles and spirals instead of in straight lines. And that's at profoundcreativity.com. And I would love for people to come visit me.
Okay. And your message of positivity for the world?
I just think everyone is important, and it's important to be who you are, and that the world needs exactly who you are.
I
because
appreciate
there's
that.
nobody else like you.
I agree with you on that and everything. Ben, anything that we didn't get to that you'd like to share and everything along those lines, as well as how people can get in touch with Bear Remedy and all in that space and your message of positivity?
Yeah, so if anyone wants access to our free sample pack that we have, all you got to do is pay shipping. You can grab that at bearremedy.net and try some of the strongest, most potent mushrooms on the market. And I think the message of positivity that I'd leave people with is, yeah, you're worth it, and the world's a better place with you here. So just keep chugging along, no matter how hard it is. There's more people around who want to help you than sometimes you're even aware of.
Definitely. What about you, Chris?
So if you are at all interested in helping your organization improve your workforce, then I'd love for you to come and talk with me at flagshiplms.com. We also have a PDF that we give away that will help you build better online training, better courses, and that's available at the bottom of the page. And my message of positivity is the imposter syndrome, as we talked about earlier, is absolutely real, and everybody feels it. And so there is no reason in the world to let that hinder you, stop you from doing whatever it is that you want to do.
No, I agree with you on that. And like I said, my message of positivity is the more that we spread positivity, the better a world we have, and all along those lines. So it's kind of my semi-mission that I do here on this show with the Online Dinner Party, where I invite various guests on and we learn from each other, as we've done on this particular evening and everything like that. One last thing is I get ready to head out the door, because I'm going to play this particular PSA to get us totally out of the door. But before I play it, it is around education. It's actually from Oklahoma. It's a gentleman that was honoring the educators, but not just the regular educators, but also guidance counselors, the janitors, the cafeteria workers, and a number of the support staff in our school system. So from all of you, and I'll start with you, Chris, and end with Angie and everything, if you can, before I play this PSA to get us on out of here, share the importance of education to you, and maybe it was even not a traditional teacher, but a non-traditional teacher, because I know I wrote a skit, and in the skit that I wrote, people were learning lessons even from janitors and from homeless people and other folks, because sometimes we learn lessons even in the school system, and it isn't always the person that's in front of the blackboard. Sometimes it's people like the cafeteria worker and the janitor that might be teaching you lessons as well. So your thoughts around education, the importance of education, and also the importance of the support staff around education.
Education is the silver bullet. It makes everything happen. And the teacher that most influenced me is Mr. Metzger, my civics and social studies teacher in the 11th grade. And the one phrase that has always stuck with me is, there is no such thing as dishonorable work.
Yeah. What about you, Ben? And maybe there was a janitor or a cafeteria worker or somebody that influenced you, or maybe it was a regular teacher, but how is the importance of education in your own life?
Yeah, I think the education is really important, and people have to understand that, like, education may not come from a university or a college. It may come from you might be quite surprised where you can get some of the best lessons out in the real world, rather than thinking you're always going to get it in a classroom. You're going to get it all with a certificate. Some of the best lessons and best training has come through real life activity with random people, and I think that's something to really acknowledge and even embrace. And I don't think a lot of people, they no longer embrace the world of apprenticeships or trades and things like that as much as they used to. And that's very, very powerful.
No, I agree with you on that and everything like that. And like I said, I mentioned that skit I mentioned on this show before and everything. It was like a mini play. And that's actually one of the lessons that was taught. Was a janitor in the school system knew more, because it was actually in a corporate environment. It wasn't the school system, but the janitor in the corporate environment knew more than even the gentleman's corporate peers and his bosses knew, and everything like that. Because if you know any corporation, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit organization, sometimes it's the janitors and the secretaries that actually know where the bones are buried and all along those lines. And they're the ones that you might need as your allies. And sometimes we forget that in the corporate world and all along those lines, because they oftentimes know more than they let on. And it might be a good idea to become friends with them sometimes. I'm sure you've had that experience, Christopher, as well, where there have been people that are, quote unquote, the lesser part of the totem pole, but they might have more knowledge than you're giving them credit for.
No, that's absolutely true. And I didn't know if you wanted to segue to me or you were heading to Angie with this one, but yes, you're absolutely right. There are the people who get the work done, and then there's everybody else. And you definitely want to know the people who get the work done, because they're going to give you the real scoop on what the problems are and what the strengths and weaknesses of the organization are.
Definitely. Angie, if you wanted to think about your role in how important education is as well, and I'll play this PSA and then we'll get on out of here and everything. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this hour and a half conversation thereabouts with the three of you, and look forward to seeing you on some other shows as well, and possibly even have you back on other dinner parties, because sometimes I bring guests back more than one time.
Absolutely. I had the best teacher in the entire world, my high school English teacher, Mrs. Deckard. She encouraged me in my writing, but she also taught me how to write. She taught us, she was very much a stickler for grammar, and every piece of paper, every answer that you gave her had to be in the form of complete sentences. You could never say yes or no. You had to answer every question in a complete sentence. And man, when you have 4 years of every day you're having to write complete short answers to simple questions, you get really good at writing really fast. And she was just a big encouragement to me. And she saw my value even when I felt like I just really was not very valuable. And she was a huge influence on my life, and I've never forgotten her.
And that makes a lot of sense. I do have to teach you as we head out the door and everything like that. But I was wondering that because you do share the name with a famous actress as well. So I was just wondering if you ever get any comments around that, because if you follow TV and everything like that, Angie Dixon was spelled the same way, I remember correctly and everything. But she was a famous actress of the 60s and the 70s and all along those lines.
Yes, she was policewoman. It was a big deal to have a policewoman on television. She was the first one. I'm always honored when people make that connection.
Definitely. So on that note, we'll get on out of here. But I did have to make that comment because I was going like, wait a minute, she has the same name as the policewoman lady and everything like that. Would you have to say something about that, Christopher?
No. I think it's great.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll get on out of here. This has been a fun conversation, and hopefully we'll see y'all on some future episodes here on Pod TV. And definitely, if you need to cut this up or use it on anything, it is on Pod TV TV shows on YouTube as well as on podtv.tv. So feel free to use it, any cut ups that you want to, for anything that you need for your own marketing and all along those lines. But thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope to see y'all in the near future. I know that I usually cut them up and put them on TikTok and Instagram. So you might see some of these clips on my personal Instagram, which is Lee Entertainment 62, and my TikTok, I don't remember the name of off the top of my head but if you look and type up Mark Lee, you'll find the TikTok as well. But I do put clips of usually about a minute or two on those as well. But on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here, and I hope to see the three of you at a later time. And this has been a fun conversation, so y'all take it easy, and we'll see what they got to say in Oklahoma about the educators.
Thanks, Mark.
No problem.
Thank you.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you, I thank you, for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.
I won't fold.